I'm not surprised that soul searching is the word being tossed around. I mean, I would if I'm in his situation. I'm sure in his mind over the last couple of months, he had a pretty good idea of where he wanted to go and where he wanted to play next season. But now, coming off this injury, you have to all of a sudden sort of shake up the calculus a little bit and say, does a 5-year deal, if presented to me from Golden State, matter more? I mean, Kevin Durant, 30 years old. The next time he steps on the floor is probably going to be 32 years old. This may be the last significant contract of his career. Probably will be the last significant contract of his career. He has to decide, do I want to maximize my value just in case something catastrophic happens in the middle of next season, which is not unheard of? I mean, John Wall is going through something pretty comparable right now with his Achilles injury. Or does he follow the same path that he's been taking for the last, couple of months, which seems to be leading him towards New York? If I had to guess, all indications were that he was going to play for one of the two New York teams. So I'm going to stick with one of those two.
Well, you said something very interesting there, which was take a 5-year max offer from Golden State if it's presented to him. And that's something we haven't touched on yet today, which is the possibility that Golden State does not offer him a 5-year full supermax or a 5-year, supermax contract. For Golden State, Bobby Marks has laid this out. It's about $1.6 billion over the next 5 years for Steph, Clay, KD, all of them getting the max. Do you think there's a possibility Golden State blanches at the idea and does not offer him that 5-year supermax?
No, just because it would be a complete 180 from everything that Joe Lacob has said over the last 6 months. I mean, Lacob has consistently told reporters that have asked him that he intends to aggressively pursue Kevin Durant. We all know the financial situation in Golden State. They are moving into a brand new privately funded arena that they're going to print money at over the next couple of decades while they're there. It would be surprising if they didn't make that type of offer to Kevin Durant.
And Joe Lacob, I'm glad you brought up his name, because for me, he's part of the problem. You remember during the finals, I think in game number 2, didn't he make a promise?
The conference finals, he said it, yep.
Didn't he say, I guarantee you will see Kevin Durant in the NBA Finals?
Yeah.
Really? Now, if I'm sitting in my hotel room, if I'm doing rehab, regardless of where that rehab is, if my owner says that and takes the liberties to tell people what I'm getting ready to do with my body, either I'm really close to playing or they made a horrific mistake. And then after that, Steve Kerr said we went over every scenario, and the only thing from a medical standpoint that I got information on was that he could re-injure the calf. That's the worst injury. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I got some doctors, I got physical therapists, people that worked on me. I tore both my calves, and I knew that it was on board. I told my trainer last week, did I not threaten your life and your career? Did I not? And tell you and he said, Chris, I'll get the calf cleaned up, but it's also behind your knee. If I don't get that, your Achilles will be put in jeopardy. And I said it on TV, and not that I don't want to be right. I wish I was wrong. But I was right. He went out there and he hurt his Achilles. I'm not going back to Golden State. Based on the information they gave me, I believe he'll have a full recovery. I believe that even the Knicks would wait for him for another year if he decides to opt in, stay there in rehab, which I wouldn't, because I got the information from them. So if I'm Kevin Durant, my plans are almost exactly the same. He doesn't have the power to be able to potentially lure Kawhi coming to New York or some other free agent, because that free agent's got to be patient with Durant like the organization does.
Yeah, listen, my money literally is on him going to the Knicks. Like right now, they all of a sudden, they went from favorites to, you get him about 1.5 to 1. Will he be a Knick next year? I think that's a smart bet. But I would have thought it was a sure thing before the playoffs started. As close to a sure thing as you can get. I do think this raises a lot of questions. What is more important to him? The validation that I think a lot of us feel he was searching for, would be searching for by going to the Knicks. Did he get it by them losing without him after winning with him? But the other factor is what Chris is talking about. We know Joe Lacob put unnecessary pressure on him to play by saying that. We know that. But we don't know who were the people within the organization whispering in Sam Amick and Tim Kawakami's ear that Draymond would be back. What's taking him so long? If KD has an idea of who they are, and if it's people that don't actually matter, then okay. But if it's people that matter, if it's someone that he either has to play with or answer to within the organization, I would have if I were KD, I would have a really, really hard time going back there knowing even if this is what people need to understand about this injury, even if he has the Dominique recovery, even if he comes back year later as good as ever, Dominique actually came back arguably a little better, it still alters the trajectory of his career forever. It still might take off the board what could have been Kevin Durant's, not his #1 goal, but his pinnacle of achievement, which is the NBA's all-time scoring record, which was in play for him. It almost assuredly shortens his career on the back end. All of these things happen even if he has a full and great recovery. And if I feel like I was guilted into playing, and that's what happened here, I don't want to go see those people again.
Well, this is certainly a variable because medical staffs and medical decisions matter. I'm sure in all sports, and for sure I know in the NBA. I mean, if it happens to be that Kawhi would go back to Toronto, part of that would probably be because of the Raptors' medical staff and what they've been able to do with him all season long.
And their agreement with Kawhi and his set of doctors that they would proceed, both given advice.
Correct. But and for years, how many times do we hear about the Phoenix Suns and what their medical staff was able to do? David Griffin, one of his first hires out of New Orleans was to pull the Suns trainer and the guy in charge of the Aaron Nelson and bring him to New Orleans with them. On the flip side of it, the Portland Trailblazers struggled for years with the perception that they mishandled the Greg Oden situation and how that thing played out. So, how Kevin Durant feels about how he was treated medically, I think is going to be a variable in all this.
Does it factor in, you said you believe it's one of the New York teams. Brooklyn's team doctor, Dr. Martin O'Malley, was the one who did his surgery.
Yep.
Obviously, he's been tied. Kevin Durant.
And operated on him when he did his foot. Earlier in his career.
One of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, so a comfort level there. Kyrie Irving has been a factor in these two being tied together. Where do you think the push-pull is of recruitment by one another, or how that factors into an ultimate decision whether or not one of those players may choose to go to a team either solo or wanting to go together?
I mean, the dynamic between Kyrie and Kevin Durant right now is fascinating. Like, what kind of conversations are they having? Is it as simple as Kyrie wants to play in Brooklyn, wants Kevin to go there, Kevin wants to play in New York, and Kyrie wants to go there? I mean, how that plays out over the next couple of weeks, I'm not so sure. I think that Kevin's preferred destination, to your point, Nick, is New York with the Knicks. I think Kyrie's preferred destination is Brooklyn with the Nets. But if these guys wind up kind of splitting the baby here and going to separate locations, neither team really wins. I mean, the Knicks wind up without Durant for a year and struggle next season. And the Nets, do they really want Kyrie and that's it on that group? I'm not so sure that's the best thing either.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.